Hey everyone, Lord Bite Me Man here. It's been a while since I did a random horror vlog, and I like doing them since everyone seems to like a little bit of unwinding and dealing with subject matter from a more lighthearted position. So, back on that bicycle this weekend. Uh, Not the Logan Paul bicycle that gets you a sexual harassment complaint and a metaphorical one. Um, this week's story is a fun little number. I'm going to talk about a bunch of things that should be scary but aren't. And bam! A fucking lightning bolt! Or, as I'd like to call it, the time Lord Bite Me Man was right next to a lightning strike. Yes, that is Thor, the Norse god of thunder, drilling me in the ass with a lightning bolt. That's your bad art for this week. And yes, put down your damn Marvel comics, he was a redhead. Snorri Sturluson will not be replaced by fucking Stan Lee. So today's story takes place, as most of my stories do, back in the 1990s in a suburb of Detroit called Southfield. It was the summer of 1996 to be exact. I had a bit of an oddball teenage life, and trust me, it's gonna be the subject of future installments of the Random Horror Vlogs. Long story short, I was essentially living on my own for most of high school, which meant incessant parties, roving orgies. Okay, actually, I was an honor student, and it was made abundantly clear that if I was going to continue to maintain this level of freedom, I had to keep my grades up and behave. So I did. Um, I was incredibly studious when I was in high school, and quite a bit socially awkward at the time, so not really much of a party animal or anything. Uh, of course, in the summer, I had no study obligations other than or any other obligations really, other than just, getting a summer job so I could maintain a food budget. My parents took care of the other operational expenses of where I was living, so that's really the only thing I had to do. That left me with a lot of time on my hands to pursue any damn pastime I wanted. And other than frantic amounts of masturbation in my teenager years and a lot of video games, one thing I really liked to do was stay up all night long and enjoy the peace and quiet of the AM hours. Where I lived was literally outside of Detroit. You remember Eminem's 8 Mile? Well, I lived on 9 Mile. Contrary to popular perception, this did not mean my life was akin to the bastard progeny of the Fallout series and a Resident Evil game. Detroit was actually pretty chill in the 90s. Even, the city was making a bit of a comeback. Those were the Archer years, and there was a lot of building going on. Southfield itself was often kind of laughed at as the place where all of Detroit's overachievers settled, because, they'd all move north of 8 Mile and right into Southfield. So there was no real general issue with any climate of crime in the area or anything like that. But being that close to Detroit, and with Southfield's population blowing up, it did mean that for the first 13 to 14 years of my life, I wasn't aware that the city could ever get quiet. My mind was blown the first time I set foot on a 9 Mile road and looked in both directions to see no cars coming. Come to think of it, maybe this place was a bit of a post-apocalyptic zombie area. Anyway, coupling my incredible boredom in the summer with a fascination for seeing the city devoid of life, that led to a habit of me taking long, late-night walks. And when I say long, I mean these things were typically about 10 miles long. Or, for those of you who do the metric system, 44.5 trillion kilometers. My route typically involved a big loop that sent me up to 10 Mile. We're so creative with our road names here in the Detroit area. And I'd follow that past a local engineering school, Lawrence Technological University. Then I'd head back south and head back home. I loved these walks. It wasn't any spooky thing or anything like that. You were literally just getting to walk in a city without cars or noise anywhere. And it was just the most relaxing thing ever to do. I only ended up ever having a single incident with another person while I was out walking, so, in general is totally fine from the people danger aspect. Other dangers? Well, let me tell you about this walk. It was a cloudy night, which in Michigan is pretty much 75% of the year. We're not on speaking terms with the sun here. I was rounding the stretch where I was walking past the Lawrence Tech campus. Among the things on the campus, there's a large radio tower. And I was approaching some of the ground cables for the tower, and I started to hear this faint snapping sound. And this was a real strange experience in general, being able to hear, real subtle snapping sound like that in this busy urban setting. In the daytime, I'd maybe dismiss a sound like that, and it's just in this instance, this quiet, I looked off at it because there was nothing much else to look at. I wanted to see what the sound was. I wondered if, could this be a mugger or something? No, it wasn't. There was nobody in the parking lot. But I got to the point where I was passing by some of the by some of the ground cables of the radio tower and getting near passing the tower itself. And I looked up and I saw this little blue electric spark jumping across a coupling link on one of the ground cables. Cool, I thought. This must happen all the time. These ground cables, just must have these snapping going on all the time, and we just never notice it because of all the noise in the daylight. And then there were some more sparks. It started at a couple of the other coupling links, and then some others. And then there was this big cascade of them, and the sky erupted into daylight level brightness, and the loudest explosion I ever heard cracked overhead. Zeus was pissed. After sitting there for several minutes in total immobile shock, it set into me that I had just seen the biggest lightning bolt of my life. It had just passed overhead. And later on in life, I learned that those sparks were the formation of a lightning streamer, and really I'm super lucky that I didn't, die. What ensued was me walking. Fast. Really fast. About twice as fast as I was walking before, so I could get the hell away from there and preferably leave a vapor trail in my wake. And I learned my lesson and never took a late night walk again. No, I was literally back out there the next night. What can I say? I love my late night walks. And that's the story of the time I was right next to a lightning strike. If you like this story, let me know down in the comments below, or shoot me some feedback on Twitter. And until next time, may God have mercy on my soul.